Party Blowers. That was the end of the Party Blowers. I want to tell you a story about that, though, before I start the proper presentation. My brother and I have a YouTube channel. In fact, I'm much more famous on YouTube than I am for writing books. We have, like in the Netherlands, we have 40,000 viewers every week, and we have in total 150 million video views. But my brother writes songs, and he used these things. We call them party blowers. I don't know what you call them, but he used these things. They each have a different pitch, as I'm sure you heard. Like, they each have a little bit of a different sound. And he used hundreds of them to perfectly recreate the theme song to the video game Tetris. Are you young enough to, or old enough to have played Tetris? Which goes like yeah, he became quite famous for this, and I used to have it as my ringtone, but my phone broke, so I was going to play it for you, but I don't have my right phone with me. But if you want to go home and Google Tetris Party Blower, you will be able to hear Hank using all of these party blowers to play the Tetris theme song. Anyway, I want to thank the library here at Joure for making it possible. Did I say that right? Okay. For making it possible for me to open the young adult section of the library. I'm really excited about that because I'm really passionate about these kinds of books. Like, I saw a lot of the books that I turned over, and many of them are among my favorite novels. And I feel really strongly that we need good books for teen readers. And that's pretty much why I write the books that I write. I write for you because I find you more interesting than I find adults. I think that you're more important. I think adults are pretty boring, to be upfront with you, including myself. Like, I enjoy adult life a lot more than I enjoyed being a teenager. I'm much happier now than I was when I was a teenager, but I'm also much more boring. You know? All of the things that I think about are boring things, like whether I paid the mortgage this month and whether my kid is taking naps at the right time and everything. And when you're a teenager, you're beginning to confront for the first time the big, interesting questions of human existence, right? Like, why are we here on this planet at this moment? Is there a purpose to our existence? Like, it's very strange if you think about it that we are the only creatures that have self-consciousness, so far as we know, in the whole universe. We're the only creatures that are aware of ourselves. Like I really like dogs, and I have a dog, but my dog never thinks to himself, I am a dog. You know? Like, he's not smart enough to, like, have that level of abstraction of being able to think, oh, I am a dog. I am a creature living in this world, and I will wonder about what it means to be a dog. He doesn't have those thoughts. He's just like, I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm happy. You know? It's not a complicated thing for him. That's what I love about being a person, and that's what I love about writing, is that it's a chance to have a conversation with you about those big, interesting questions. Why are we alive if there's a reason? Why do we suffer if there's a reason? Why do we fall in love with each other if there's a reason? That really interests me. So I guess all of you have read Paper Towns, right? Or at least pretended to read Paper Towns for your class. So I want to talk about that book. I guess, does anyone have a copy of it, actually? Other than the one I knocked over? Because I want to read from it in Dutch. I'm a very good Dutch reader. Yeah, there's one. Oh, thank you. I have one. Thank you, Robert. What's your name? Rachel. Rachel? Oh, thank God for having a good, solid American name. I was very grateful they called this book Paper Towns, because I can pronounce that. Or they called my first book in Dutch, Het Grote Misschien. Yeah? How do I say it? Machine? Machine? Let me tell you my experience of speaking Dutch to Dutch people. I say exactly what they say, the exact word, and then they repeat it back to me as if I've said it wrong, and then I say it again, and then they repeat it back to me as if I'm still saying it wrong, and that goes on forever. Like, my favorite football player is named Dirk Kuyt, and every time I say Dirk Kuyt's name, people are like, oh yeah, you mean Derek Kuyt, and I'm like, yes, Dirk Kuyt, and they're like, no, Dirk Kuyt, and this goes on forever. Alright, so I'll try to repeat it. Zolz, ik het, zij, krijt, eider. I'll stop. But that gets to what I find really interesting about this book in Dutch, which is that I have no idea what it's about, even though I wrote it. I have no idea what it says, even though I wrote it. I think there's something really beautiful about that, because what that means to me is that the book isn't real unless you have the code to figure out what it's saying, right? So you know the Dutch code, and that means that you can read this in Dutch, and you can know what's inside of it. And I can never do that, well, unless I were to learn Dutch. I can never be able to translate this. And that's what makes reading, to me, different and better than every other media. Like, there was a Dutch horror movie that came out a couple years ago. Maybe you saw it, Sinterklaas. It was like Santa Claus, he kills people, and it was really good. And I watched it, and it's in Dutch, and I didn't understand any of the words, but I was still able to know exactly what was happening, right? Because you didn't need to understand the words to know what was happening, because it was a horror movie. There are sounds to tell you when to be scared, and there are these visual images. So in a way, the story gets told for you. You don't have to work. You don't have to do anything in order to know the story of the movie Sinterklaas. But you do have to know something, and you do have to work in order to understand what a novel is doing. And I think that's why it's so important, because when you're reading this, you're making it, you're creating it in a way that you don't create a movie or even a video game. Like, when we play video games, we feel like we're creating what we're doing, right? Because we're making choices. Like, if I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, do any of you know that game? Is that popular here? If I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, and I can choose whether or not I kill someone, right? Or I can choose whether or not I steal this car or another car. But I'm not really creating the world, because the world has been created for me, and I'm just playing inside of it. With this, you and I are creating a world together. And I know that because I can't create the world using these words, because I don't read in Dutch. When my Chinese books come to my house, this happened right before I left for the Netherlands, I had all of these Chinese books come to my house, and they were mine, I guess, but I couldn't tell which one was which. Like, I couldn't tell which one was my book Paper Towns, and which one was my book Looking for Alaska, and which one was my book Will Grayson, because I don't even know the alphabet, you know, like so I just took pictures of them and sent them to Twitter and asked people which was which. So I want to leave time for questions and stuff, but I do want to tell you a little bit about this book and why I wrote it. There's this vampire novel, Twilight. You guys, is this popular here? Probably. And there's a movie with Robert Pattinson, and he's very handsome and everything. Do any of you not know what Twilight is? Boys? Do you know Twilight? No? Not so much? Okay. So I'll tell you about it. There's a girl, and she's really normal. She's totally average girl. And then she goes to a new school, and at the new school there's a boy, and he's really beautiful, and he's really nice, and he's also a vampire, so he's really dangerous because he might eat you, right? So it's exciting because he might eat you, but then he's also really sweet and romantic, and he loves you. Also, he's 107 years old, but he looks young, and he sparkles in the sunshine. Like, when he goes outside and the sun is shining on his bare chest, it's all like glittery sparkles. And this is the romanticized ideal of a man in the imagination of girls, apparently. Like, they want us to be these like really buff, guys who have chests that sparkle in the sunshine when we go outside. I was really interested after reading that book in how we as boys romanticize girls, how we think of them as being more than human, how we put them on these pedestals where they're these goddesses who are perfect and they smell better than boys and they look better than boys and they're so amazing and wonderful. And there are people like that at every school. People who you look up to them instead of looking at them. You imagine them as being bigger and better and cooler than you will ever be. I think that that's really dangerous. And in Paper Towns, that's the way that Quentin imagines Margot, right? There's this girl, Margot Roth-Spiegelman. She's beautiful, she's amazing, she's smart, she's dangerous, she's cool. And then little Quentin is just an average boy, just an average boy. And so when she comes to him and she says, we're going to go on this adventure, he thinks, like, finally we're going to be together. And the whole time that they're on this adventure, breaking into SeaWorld and going up to the top of that skyscraper, the whole time he thinks, we're going to get together at the end of this. And she's trying to tell him all along, you're not listening to me, you're not paying attention to me, I'm desperate, I hate this place, I hate my life, I have to leave. And he can't see that. That's what I wanted to write about, the way that when we put people on this pedestal, when we look up to them instead of looking at them, the way that that affects us, and the way that it affects the people we're looking up to. Because it always ends up, in the end, that they escape. They escape from us. And that's what happens with Margot. I want to take your questions, but I also want to say one thing about Paper Towns, about the title, about that weird geographic phenomenon of made-up cities. So when I was in college, Americans take a lot of road trips. We have a big country, and most of it is pretty empty. And we drive a lot because we drive big cars. We drive big gas-guzzling cars, and we drive them for 30,000 kilometers every year, whatever. And I was like that when I was a kid, and I drove across the country once with my girlfriend at the time. She dumped me, but glad that's funny to you. I drove across the country with this girl, and we were trying to find this little town that was on the map in South Dakota called Holen, South Dakota, H-O-L-E-N, South Dakota, which was actually a joke by the map maker. He meant, like, there's a hole in South Dakota, like there's this place that is not a real place. So we went to this town, and there was no town there. And we found a house, and I knocked on the woman's door, and I said, the map says that there's a place here, and there's no place. Do you know where that place is? And she said, no, they made that up. They made up Holen, South Dakota. And the reason they made it up was so that they could be sure that no one was stealing their maps, right? Because all maps of the Netherlands look the same, right? Rotterdam is always, Rotterdam's always here, Amsterdam's always here, Friesland is always here. That's my excellent map making. So the only way you have of knowing if someone is stealing your map, since all maps of the Netherlands look the same, is if you put a fake place on your map. And that struck me as a really great metaphor after I learned the story of Aglo, New York, this fake place that became real because people kept going there. Because as writers and as a reader, I really believe that the things we imagine become real. Not all of them, obviously, but some of the things we imagine become real. And what we put on our maps changes our lives. Like the way we imagine the map of our lives, of ourselves, of the relationships that we could have, of the places we could go, and the things we could do, that really shapes the life that we end up having. And I don't mean this in like some weird metaphysical way. I mean this literally. As an example, if you look at a map of the world these days, you will always see America is on top of Brazil, and Europe is on top of Africa, right? and Russia and Alaska are on opposite sides of each other. Well, that's a very strange way to do a map. First off, there's no reason that north should be up. And in fact, when I've traveled to Australia, almost invariably, the maps have Australia on the top, Africa on the top, South America on the top, America on the bottom, you know, Europe on the bottom, because they imagine Australia as the center of the world, in the same way that we imagine Europe and the United States as the center of the world. There's also no reason why we would split the map between Russia and Alaska when we could split the map at Greenland, where no one lives. Is anyone here from Greenland? Okay, yeah, no one lives in Greenland. And we could just split the map there, and it would make a lot more sense, and we would have more of the places where people live together on the map, so it would look like we live closer together, rather than the way it looks now, like we live farther apart. The reason that maps are like that is because when they started making the maps, those maps, America hated Russia, and they wanted to be on the opposite sides of the map, and we wanted north to be up, primarily because we wanted Europe and America to be on top, and Africa and South America to be on the bottom. And those are political statements, but they have had a real-world effect, which is that when we imagine Africa, we literally imagine it as beneath Europe, right? We literally imagine it as being below Europe. When I imagine Brazil, I imagine it as being literally below the United States. So the way we map our lives and the way we map the world really does shape the lives that we end up having. And that's a really important thing for me because it's the reason, ultimately, that I write. I'm writing to try to make the map of my life and my world more interesting. And hopefully also to make the map of your life and your world more interesting, to have more places on that map, to have more possibilities, more things that could happen to you, more ways of looking at the world that you live in. And so that's why I write, essentially. And that's particularly why I wrote this book. So I was told that some of you may have questions that you have prepared, which I'm sure that you're anxious to ask me. The hands shall rise as one. Any questions are fine. You can also ask me about, like, American politics, but I prefer to talk about paper towns.
They all have questions. They all have questions.
Okay, yeah.
Just point at one.
I don't want to point at them. I want them to volunteer. I will point at you, though, if you don't volunteer. Yes?
Have you been to the red light district?
Have I been to the red light district? Is that the question you prepared? Yeah, I mean, in the sense that I have to walk. So every day I write at the Central Library in Amsterdam, which is this ridiculously nice, it's the nicest, it's like 7 stories tall, and I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it's really nice. All Dutch libraries are so much nicer than American libraries. I hope this isn't on YouTube. That, like, it's funny to, like, my wife and I will walk into a library and we'll almost start, like, giggling because it's just so nice. It's really, you're really fortunate, and you should be grateful because it really is such a blessing to have these spaces that are nice and well lit and comfortable and welcoming, where all people can come and have access to knowledge. So anyway, but about the red light district, to answer your question. So where I live in the Spouw Square, and I have to walk through the red light district to get to where I work, which is at the library. But I walk there at 7 in the morning, which is not really when most prostitutes are working, at least so far as I can tell. And when I walk home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, yeah, I guess they're there. I don't know, I read in a guidebook that you shouldn't just look straight ahead because it's offensive to them if you look at them, because then they think that you might be interested, and obviously I'm not, so yeah, so I just look straight ahead. I don't know. But yes, I have been to the red light district, to answer your question. I'm sure the next question will be about coffee shops. Other questions? I'll start calling on people. I'm not afraid. You.
Where exactly do you live now?
Where do I live in America? So if this is America, yeah, so this is like Florida, and this is Seattle, Washington. I live there, right in the middle, in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is a city of 1 million people. So it's a large city. It's about the size of Amsterdam, but it's not a very famous city, except that we have a very famous car race, the Indy 500, which I'm a big sports person, so I like the Indy 500 a lot, and I'm in like a sports fantasy leagues and stuff. But that's about all we have, really, in terms of things that are famous. But the reason we lived there, we lived in New York City and in Chicago, two of the great American cities. But we moved to Indianapolis because my wife works in art museums, and they have a very, very good art museum there, and she got a big, fancy job there. So we moved there 4 years ago, and I really love it, actually. Living in New York, or even in Amsterdam, places that are famous places that people want to live and people dream of living when they're young. Like I grew up in Alabama in a very small town, and I dreamt of living in New York City. I dreamt that one day, like, I would be in New York and I would be a writer, and those things happened. But then when I was doing it, it was just kind of expensive and dirty, and I just wanted to have like a house with a garden where I could raise my baby, and so I'm very happy in Indianapolis. I had all these romantic notions of being a world traveler, but I think I'm quite happy there. Plus I get to come to places like Amsterdam for 2 months at a time, which is lovely. Yes, you.
Why did you come to Joure?
Why did I come to Joure? Because I was invited. I've always wanted to come to Friesland. This is my 6th trip to the Netherlands, with my first trip to Friesland. And so that's part of it. I've always wanted to be here, but also just, because I was invited. And I'm only here for 2 months, so I wanted to meet as many readers as possible and also see as much of the Netherlands as possible. So I've been everywhere from Maastricht to Texel and many places in between. It's been great. I really love it here, obviously, since I come here every year, but this is by far our longest trip, and we've really been, it's been great. My baby's been here. I have a kid. He's still very little. He's only 16 months old. Here, I'll show you. See? He's very cute. There he is. Yeah, very cute. And he loves Amsterdam because he loves being able to see people, and the only word he says is hi, but he says it a lot. So he just points at everyone he sees. Hi. 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 Until they say hi back. But he gives us away as Americans, like, I'm trying to teach him to say, like, hello or something. The only Dutch word he speaks is lekker. Lekker. So he'll be like, we taught him to, like, when he eats an orange or something, he'll eat it and be like, lekker. Super cute. We worked the entire time. Basically, all we've done is make him say, lekker. Did I answer your question? Okay. When I get to talking about my baby, I completely forget whatever I'm talking about. I'm going to go into the back row. You, with a nice white shirt. I started writing when I was little, like when I was a kid. When I was like a little kid, 8 or 9 years old. But I was never very good at writing when I was young. I liked it. I loved books. That was I loved reading. And I loved being around books. Like I grew up in a house where my parents loved books, and so we always had books around. And I wasn't a very good reader, but I really liked books. I really thought they were cool. And so when I got older, I got to be a better reader. And I started to write more when I was in high school and then when I was at university. But I didn't major in writing. Like, I didn't study writing at university. I studied Islam and Islamic history. So I didn't really know that much about writing formally. But when I graduated from school, I went to work as a book reviewer, writing about Islam and Islamic history at a magazine, but I was also writing my novel at night and on the weekends. And I just read a lot of books. That was my real that's how I learned to write, was from reading other writers, you know? Like, the great thing about writing is that you can, or about reading, is that you can have a conversation with people who died 700, 1,000 years ago. You know, you can find out what people were thinking in 1600 or 1400 or whenever, like when the market at Joure all those years ago opened, like you can read what people were thinking about back then. And that's, that was really what excited me about reading when I was younger. Yes. I'm just going to keep pointing. Yes.
How did you get the ideas for writing the books?
Well, with Paper Towns, how did I get my ideas is the question. With Paper Towns, so the original idea, well, part of it came from like thinking about Twilight and how we romanticize the people we love and how that's not real love. Like real love is not about boys who sparkle or girls who are cooler than all the other girls in the world. Real love is about loving people even when they're, loving the person you love even when they're vulnerable, even when they're weak, even when they aren't attractive. And so that was part of it. The other part of it was that I was thinking about this girl, Margot Roth Spiegelman, who does all these crazy things because I had been talking with my wife. My wife and I went to school together, like, not to alarm you, but we met when we were your age. But we weren't dating or anything. She was very popular and very, like, you know, pretty and cool and everything. And I was a complete loser. Yeah, I was a bad student, and I was in trouble a lot with my teachers and everything. So we didn't know each other that well. So like somewhere maybe sitting like opposite sides of the room, you guys are gonna get married. But anyway, because we went to high school together, we often tell each other stories about the people we went to high school with, because it makes us laugh all these years later. And we were remembering that there was this guy, John Malden, who we went to high school with, who was just amazing. Like, the United States has a trade embargo with Cuba. It's illegal to travel from the United States to Cuba. It's illegal to sell anything in Cuba if you're from the United States. Our friend John Malden, when he was, how old are you guys, 16? 15? Okay, yeah, so my friend John Malden, when he was 16, I was working at an ice cream store, like scooping ice cream and wearing a pink hat and a baby blue apron. And John Malden came into the ice cream store one day, and I was like, "Are you going to get a summer job, or are you just going to sit around all summer eating ice cream?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get a summer job, but it's a 4-day job, and I'm going to make more money than you're going to make all summer." And I was like, "Whatever." So John Malden stole his mother's credit card. He purchased 200 pairs of Levi blue jeans. He put them in 6 suitcases. He drove to Mexico. He flew from Mexico to Cuba with his, like, elementary Spanish. He found the black market in Havana, Cuba, where you can sell Levi blue jeans. He sold them for like 500% profit. He took his 6 empty suitcases and all his money. He flew back to Mexico. He drove back home to where we lived. And then he went to his mom and he said, "Mom, I stole your credit card. I'm really sorry, but here's all your money." And he had made more money in 4 days than I made all summer working at the ice cream store. And he was 16 years old. Like, that was the kind of person he was. He later got arrested on 9/11 because he was in Afghanistan. And he spent 2 months in prison. They thought he was an American Taliban. And he spent 2 months in prison before he was eventually released. But the reason that he was in Afghanistan was not any kind of political statement. He was trying to travel by foot from China to Paris, where his girlfriend was. So he called his girlfriend and he was like, "I'm going to walk from where I am in China to where you are in Paris. I'll see you in 2 months." And she said, "You know, that's obviously crazy." And then a month later, he's in Afghanistan on 9/11 and he gets arrested. So anyway, he now runs a pomegranate juice company in Turkey. And he's very rich. He had a very lucrative silk tie business in China, and then he started this pomegranate juice company in Turkey. And I was just thinking about, like, we were telling stories about this crazy guy, and I was like, what if that crazy guy had been a girl and really beautiful? I sure would have been in love with her. And that's really where the idea for Paper Towns came from. Yes?
What does your wife think about your books?
What does my wife think about my books? She's very honest. You know, like she's not nice about it. She's not like, oh, you're a genius or anything. She likes some of them more than others. But she's the first person who reads everything that I write. So, in a way, she's never going to hate anything because I'm always going to change what she wants me to change because I trust her so much. She's such a smart reader. She's such an intelligent person. I mean, she's far more intelligent than I am. So it's really nice to have her there to read everything that I write and everything that I'm working on. And so a lot of times she'll read something, maybe I wrote like 40 or 50 pages of a story, and she'll read it and she'll say, like, I don't think this is very good. And I'll generally just stop writing that story and try something else. But she likes, Paper Towns is her favorite, and the new one, the one that I'm writing now, is her favorite. But Paper Towns is her second favorite. Looking for Alaska is about our high school. My first book, Het Grote Misschien. And she doesn't like that book because it's about, to her, it's about our high school. So it's very personal to her. So it's weird for her to read it. Yes?
What's your favorite writer?
My favorite writer? I'm reading a Dutch book I like a lot right now by Tim Crodet. Is that his name? Did I say his name right? Yeah, it's really good. I can only show it to you in English, but it's really great. The writer, I don't know what it's called in Dutch, but this guy could be my new favorite writer if he keeps that up. My favorite writer is probably this American guy named, like, recent writer, is probably this American guy named David Foster Wallace, who wrote really only 2 novels and sadly died a couple years ago at a very young age. But he's probably my favorite writer. But I like a lot of writers. Like, I don't know, who's your favorite writer?
James Patterson.
Yeah, I've met James Patterson. He's a very nice guy. Yeah, he doesn't write all of his books though. He wrote like the first 40. Now he just outlines them. Yeah, he's fun. Intense. I like his serial killer stuff and also his flying people stuff. I want more books where people fly. I think that's awesome. Did you have a question?
Yeah, how much books do you write?
How what?
How much book have you written?
I've written 4 or 3.5, I guess. My first book was called Looking for Alaska, and it's about a guy who memorizes the last words of famous people. So, like, the last thing they say before they die. I was really obsessed with this when I was a kid myself. There's this famous English playwright, Oscar Wilde. He's a very funny guy. And the last thing he said before he died, he's like dying in this garishly decorated, really ugly, hideous room. And he turns to his friend and he says, either that wallpaper goes, or I do. And then he died. Henrik Ibsen, the great playwright, his nurse said to him, you seem to be feeling much better today, Mr. Ibsen. And he said, on the contrary. And then he died. I just got really interested in them when I was a kid. And so I wrote a book about a kid who's interested in the last words of famous people. And he goes to this boarding school in Alabama, and he meets this young woman named Alaska, and he just completely falls in love with her. And it's kind of a tragic romance, I guess. And then my second book was called An Abundance of Catherines, which is about a kid who's been dumped over and over again. Do you guys know that? I guess you have that word, dumped, yeah? Right, he's been dumped over and over again by girls, and they're all named Catherine. He's been dumped by 19 girls named Catherine, which is like also kind of a true story. But I never got dumped by a girl named Catherine, but I've been dumped by a lot of, by a lot, way more than 19 girls. So that was fun to write. It's not sad, I'm married. Yeah, it used to be really sad. Like I wasn't married when I first wrote that book, right? And so I would like go and I would do these readings in America, and lots of people would come, like lots of kids would come, but then there would also be some older people, like sometimes women, you know, like, and it was a great way to like pick up girls to have written this book about getting dumped, a boy who gets dumped over and over again, because all girls want to date and dump boys. And so they, yeah, it was a great strategy, actually, it turned out. But then I got married, thank God. But she dumped me, even she dumped me. We went on 2 dates, and then she dumped me. And then like 6 months later, she went out with me again, and now we're married. But, so it's about a boy who gets dumped over and over again. And he's kind of a genius. He's really good at anagramming. Do you guys know what anagramming is? Like when you rearrange the letters in a word to spell a different word. Like if you, like rats, or to star. Thank you. I couldn't think of an anagram for rats. Thank you. It's very helpful. Or Britney Spears anagrams to the American religious denomination Presbyterians. So George W. Bush anagrams to something hilarious, like unqualified or something. I can't remember. But there are lots of funny anagrams in the book as well. And then paper towns. And then I wrote a book with my friend David that just came out in the Netherlands, that came out last year in the States, called Will Grayson, about 2 boys who both have the same name, but live in very different parts of Chicago, and they meet in the middle of the book. Other questions? Yes?
Which of the 4 books did you wrote, and do you like most?
Which do I like most? Well, I don't like any of them that much. I guess, it's hard. I guess I probably like Paper Towns the most. I mean, I like the one that I'm writing now. I point to it because yesterday I got all the like notes from my editor in the mail. So, you know, all the stuff that I have to put in the manuscript before it gets finished. Here, I'll just pass this around so you can see what it's like. Please don't steal this. It's the only copy I have. That's not the whole book. That's like a quarter of it, but that's the part that I'm working on right now. I always like whatever I'm working on right now the most, so I like this the most, and then I guess Paper Towns is second for me. Yeah, that's a good question though. It's hard. It's like picking between your kids. You know, it's like if you ask, if you ask one of your parents, do you like me or my brother the most? They're gonna be like, oh, I love them all equally. But you always know. There's always one. Someone recently, now that I'm a parent, the conversation is very different. And someone recently confessed to me they have 2 kids, and they were like, I like Jacob much more than the other one. I was like, that's terrible. But I only have 1 kid, so it's easy for me to think that. Anyway, yeah, it's a good question. Other questions? You in the back with the glasses that are like my glasses.
Can you tell us something about your pets?
About my past?
Pets.
Pets. Yeah, so I have this dog, Willie. His full name is Fireball Wilson Roberts. Fireball, he's a tiny little white dog. He's about this big, but I wanted to give him a big name. Because my wife was making me get this tiny little white dog that I was going to have to like walk in my neighborhood while all the men in my neighborhood made fun of me. So I wanted to have a big name, Fireball Wilson Roberts, which is taken from this great novel called The Last Good Kiss by a writer who just died, James Crumley. But the first line of that novel is my favorite first line in any book ever. It's this thriller basically, but the first line is just brilliant. The first line is, when I finally caught up with Abraham Traherne, he was drinking beer in a ramshackle joint just outside of Sonoma, California, with an alcoholic bulldog named Fireball Roberts, drinking the heart right out of a fine spring afternoon. And I always wanted to have a dog named Fireball Roberts, but my wife insists on calling him Willie. So we call him Willie. And he's a little dog. He's a very bad dog. He's not very well behaved, and he barks a lot. But I just love him. And we've been away from him for the last 2 months. He's living with my aunt and uncle, and the thing I miss most about America is seeing Willie. So it'd be good to go back home to him, and when I write, you know, or if I'm editing video or writing, he's always just right at my feet, which is really nice. So, yeah. Do you guys watch YouTube, by the way? Any of you? Are there any like famous YouTubers who you watch? Who you? Yeah? No? No? Like Shane Dawson or Charlie or? Huh? What were you saying? No, it's okay.
I didn't know about YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. It's like a video website.
YouTube.
Sorry. I have bad pronunciation. It's my fault. Yeah, YouTube. Sorry. Yeah. It seems like it's quite popular in the Netherlands. But you have your own set of people you watch, not the Americans. So like, or the Brits. But like, in England, this guy Charlie is so cool. Like, is probably the most famous person in all of England right now. So I was wondering if any of you watch any of those guys. But yeah, now you can go watch us. Other questions? Yes?
What's your style of writing books?
It's my style. I don't know. Relaxed? I try not to. I want to write about really serious stuff, you know, but I don't want to. I don't want to make it boring and philosophical. I don't want to make it look like philosophy for you. I don't want to make it boring. I want it to be interesting. I want to write about love and you know, excitement, and I want you to want to read my books. Like, I think my books are taught in a lot of schools, and I think that's great. But my favorite thing is when people choose to read them. You know, because we live in this world with Facebook and Twitter and Hives, I guess, is still a going concern, and not just that, but you know, these immensely exciting video games like World of Warcraft and The Sims and these things that you can just get sucked into, you know? And I want to make an argument that like it's still that books are still interesting, books are still relevant, even though you could watch The Hangover Part 2 instead of reading a book, that there's still something valuable about reading a book. So like, to me, my job is to make a case to you that you should be reading my book for fun. Not because it's educational, not because it will make you smarter, not because it will be useful to you later in your life, although I think it will be, but because it's fun. So that's the style that I go for. Yeah, but I don't know to what extent I achieve it. Yeah, that's up to you guys to decide. Yes?
Will you ever come back to the Netherlands?
Yeah, will I ever come back to the Netherlands? Of course, I love it here. It's my favorite place to come. Part of my new book is set in Amsterdam. That's part of the reason that I've been here. Because my new book is about a quarter of it takes place in Amsterdam. It's American kids who visit Amsterdam because their favorite writer lives here. Well, not here, but in Amsterdam. So I'll come back when that book comes out because I'll have to promote it here. But my wife and I come back every year. Generally, we spend most of our anniversaries here. We spent our first anniversary in Amsterdam, and so we like to come back a lot. It's our favorite city. So yeah, we'll definitely come back. And I mean, we would quite like to move here someday, but we don't. Our Dutch is so horrible, and every time I try to speak Dutch to people, they just repeat back to me what I've said. So it'd be quite hard. Like, it's true. Like, everyone speaks English, and you guys are 15, and you speak brilliant English. Like, I always say this, but it's true. So the only difference between fan mail from America that I get, like email, and fan mail from the Netherlands that I get, is that the Dutch fan mail always ends with, "I apologize for my poor English." But other than that, it's completely identical. And the Americans never apologize for their poor English. So yeah, I mean, we'd love to. We will keep coming back here, of course, and I think someday, if we could learn enough Dutch, then we would love to stay. Because while everyone does speak English, to really be friends, to really have relationships, you have to speak Dutch, because your emotions are in Dutch, and your thoughts are in Dutch. And when Spain scored the thing in the World Cup final, the thing that you thought in Dutch. And I can never really live here until I feel that same way, until I can feel that same sense. So Yes, person who has the book. Do you have a question? Or did you already ask a question? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to recall on you then. I apologize. Who hasn't asked a question? You! Sitting next to the boy.
Do you earn enough money with your books to live?
Yeah, do I earn enough money with my books to live? Yes. But YouTube is a big part of my job. So between those two things, like, because you make money from YouTube, if you have advertisements next to your videos. So between those two things, yes. Yeah, I do. But my wife works. In the United States, it's different because you have, healthcare insurance is very different. So everyone here has health insurance, and you don't worry about whether you have health insurance, and it's not a big deal. In the United States, it's a very big deal. And so my wife works primarily because we need someone to get us health insurance. And the only way to get health insurance in the U.S. really is to have a job where you work for a big company or a big institution. So, you know, she loves, her work is very important and she really enjoys it. But yeah, so I don't think we could necessarily get by if she didn't work, but mostly because of the health insurance. But yeah, I've been very fortunate that my books have sold well, and they do well in foreign countries. They do quite well in Germany, and they're reasonably well here. So yeah, but that may not last forever. Like at some point, I'll probably not make enough money. That's fine though. I don't really understand what the purpose of being wealthy is anyway. I have a lot of friends who are wealthy, and it doesn't seem to make them very happy. What's funny about my book?
Only it says Anna died.
Sorry. I killed you? It says Anna died? And your name's Anna?
Yeah.
Sorry. Who did Anna die? Who's Anna? Anna who died. I can't remember that part. Sorry, but I'm sorry about killing you. Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, I kill a lot of people in that book.
John, maybe we can do one more question.
Yeah, one more question. No pressure. Anna, obviously.
What's the reason of your vlog?
What's the what?
The reason of your vlog.
The reason of my vlog? Of my videos, you mean?
Yeah.
So when my brother lives, so if this is America, to return to my great map, I live here, yeah, and my brother lives here in the woods, like straight up in the woods. Like he has solar panels for his electricity, and he lives in like a weird house in the middle of nowhere. And I don't go to his house very often because it takes me forever to get there. It's 2 airplanes and then a long drive. And he doesn't go to my house very often because he likes living in the woods with his wife. And I really like my brother, but we don't talk very often because most adult brothers don't talk that often. That's just, you know, like if you may see that your fathers or uncles don't talk to each other that much because guys just don't talk to each other that much as adults. So we really wanted to get in better touch. We wanted to be closer. And so in 2007, when YouTube was just starting out, he and I decided that we were going to stop talking on the phone and stop talking over email, and we were only going to talk to each other in these videos. And so every day, for all of 2007, I made a video or he made a video. We went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we made these videos to each other, and we never expected that people would start to watch them, but they did. And lots and lots and lots of people started to watch them. And then by the end of that year, we were so much closer as brothers, and we were also having so much fun making these videos that we decided to keep doing it. And now it's been almost 5 years, which is ridiculous. And we have almost 1,000 videos that we've made now. And we still really love it. And now we also have this large community of people who watch the videos. And that community, we work together to, we call it decreasing world suck, like decreasing the overall level of suck in the world. So, for instance, right now we're building wells in Haiti, which was ravaged by an earthquake a couple of years ago. And so the community is working together with an organization called Water.org to build wells in these villages in Haiti and then keeping track of them through video. So like, we're able to follow along with these villagers because they have camcorders and they can talk to us and we can talk to them, even though we live in very different places and in very different circumstances. We've done similar projects in Bangladesh, and we've done lots of different projects that try to alleviate poverty or to address education problems in the developing world and disease problems in the developing world. And so that's really what it's become about. Like, the videos are still quite fun and silly, but at its core, it's about this project of trying to use the internet as a way to raise both money and awareness for projects in the developing world, and to make it possible that instead of like us seeing people in Africa or in Haiti as fundamentally different from us, or as like just poor or just sick, as merely ill or merely poor, seeing them as whole people. And when you have video cameras, you can do that. Like, you can see them laughing, and you can see them fighting, and you can see people who live very different lives from yours really living. And so that's been the most exciting part of the project, and that's really why we still do it, I think. Thank you. That was a great question. I think I have to stop. But wait, yes, if you had a question.
Will you set your signature on the book?
Will I what?
Will you set your signature on the book?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, well, I signed your books. Of course, yes, yes, yes. And thank you guys so much. This has really been lovely, and I really appreciate your attention and also your reading my work and asking such interesting questions about it. Thank you. Yeah.
You have all your students in Joure. I like to, and of course, all the people who work here in our library. We want to thank you for coming to Joure. You really pronounce it very well. So
Thank you.
I don't say it twice. I don't need to say it twice. We want to do it by some speeches famous in Joure in Friesland. It's very special. This one.
Oh yeah.
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
And also
The double egg bread, yeah.
this.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you very much.
And we hope when you're living here after a few years, your Dutch is really good,
I hope
that
so
you
too.
will come back and tell another lot of students and how important and not important, how nice it really is. That's what really is. It's making fun. Thank you, students.
Thank you guys.
And whatever we see again in the library to books from Valentine.
No, it's up to them. No, get them from the library. That's fine with me. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys again. Oh, it's not. What's your name? Who should I sign this for? Oh, for Sam. Okay, cool. Oh no. That sucks. Well, tell her I'm sorry that she's